Hello everyone and welcome to Chat with Nene Alice. If this is your first time tuning in with Chat with Nene Alice, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to send in your comment. Viewers, today we have in our studios Lovetta Juana, who works for the Environmental Protection Agency, and Lovetta is here with us to discuss climate resilience. But I will allow Lovetta to introduce herself and then we'll take the conversation from that point. Hello Lovetta and welcome to Chat with Nene Alice. Can you just say a few words to our viewers?
Hello, Nene, and thank you for having me. I'm Lovetta Juana. I'm the Assistant Director of Climate Change Mitigation at the Environment Protection Agency. And as a woman, it's key that I'm part of the decision making as far as the Environment Protection Agency is concerned and climate change is concerned. Because I think there has been a problem or challenge in tackling climate resilience or adapting to climate change. So I'm happy to be here and I'm pleased to be with you all. Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome and thanks for gracing our studios today. So Lovetta, we want to go into the conversation, and the very first question I want to ask you is, what is climate resilience? We've been talking about this, for a long time now, and we have been building up structures, systems, and even putting up the Environmental Protection Agency so that we can be climate resilient. So what is that?
Okay, first of all, before we start talking about climate resilience, let's know what climate change is, because that's what makes us to fight towards being resilient. Climate change is a change of weather patterns. For example, the changes in precipitation or rains, the way it rains, the changes in temperature, the sea level rise, and so many other stuff that is affecting the weather patterns in the country. And that happens over time, though. It's not something that happens just for a day or 2 weeks or 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. It takes over 30 years sometimes. So it has been happening. We will say our forefathers or our great grandfathers started this, and we are now seeing the impact on us. So what do we do as communities, as a nation, as far as the climate change is concerned, is to put up this defense, is to capacitate ourselves to stand stronger and adjust to these disturbances, or these risks, or these hazards caused by climate change. So when we talk about climate resilience, it means the social aspect, the economic aspect, we the humans, the environment, the ecosystem, how we all cope together to stand strong or capacitate ourselves or adjust to the disturbance or the risk or the hazards caused by climate change.
Thank you. Do you think we can achieve climate resilience? I understand the fact that you said we first of all need to understand climate change and how generations before us have contributed to that. But in our era now, we are fighting with that. We are battling with that. So, do you think we can be climate resilient as a nation?
Yeah. Before we go into details, I will say yes. Capital Y, capital E, capital yes, capital S. Sorry. Yes. What do? We first of all have to empower ourselves, starting from community level, starting from village level to district level to regional level to national level. And in doing that, please, we should not forget to bring the women in the forefront. I think that was the first thing I said when I was introducing myself. So it's key for us. It's key for us to capacitate ourselves, to empower ourselves, to strive towards fighting what this climate change is. As a country, if you look at the medium-term national development plan that was set up by the now administration or the government in power, you will see that there is a whole cluster assigned to climate resilience and disaster reduction. That tells you that at that level we are committed. The Environment Protection Agency houses the Climate Change Secretariat, the National Climate Change Secretariat. That tells you we are working towards being resilient. We have the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency that handles the scientific aspect of climate change, early warning systems, telling us how the weather patterns will be. Even just a few weeks ago, they launched the weather for this year, how it's going to happen for this year, especially rainy season, how it's going to rain. So we have that in place. We have so many other projects as a country that we are implementing to make sure we fight or we make ourselves resilient to climate change. We, as a country, we're a signatory to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, what we call the UNFCCC or UNFCCC. And as a country, we have commitment report to submit to this body to show how the country has worked in being resilient to climate change. There are two ways of fighting climate change. You either adjust yourself, which we call adaptation. You prepare yourself to face these impacts, or you reduce your greenhouse gas emission, which we call mitigation. So we have adaptation and we have mitigation. There are two ways we fight climate change. So as it is, as a country, our commitment requires us to submit national communications, that's how we call the document, in which we indicate what we've done as far as adaptation is concerned and mitigation is concerned. As a country, because we signed another treaty called the Paris Agreement, which we have ratified as a country, we are required by law to submit what we call nationally determined contributions. From the name of the document, you know that we are telling the world what we think we can do, our commitments as a country. So, for example, I will not send a nationally determined contribution that tells you what Nigeria, for example, will do. I'll have to send what I think I'm committed to do as a country, as Sierra Leone. So we look at what we are capable to do. That document is submitted every 5 years. We just submitted the renewed, reviewed and updated version, the 2021, before the COP26, to the UNFCCC, wherein we have even brought up new sectors as far as adaptation and mitigation are both concerned in fighting climate change, wherein we've set new strategies, we've set new targets to meet in the next 5 years. At the same time, we've looked at how do we get resources to fund these activities. Mind you, climate change should not be something that is just handled by EPA. It's affecting us globally. It's not just an environmental problem, it's an economic problem. It's affecting the world as a whole. And so if we are doing all of this, we should make sure we take note of the fact that all other sectors are involved. For example, if you go to the Ministry of Tourism as we speak, they have a whole climate department. They have climate change focal points. You go to the Ministry of Energy, they do. You go to the Ministry of Transport, they do. You go to Statistics Office, they do. You go to the Ministry of Gender, they do, because we want to make sure we mainstream climate change. And in doing all of this, I think we can fight as a country to move towards being resilient to climate change.
Yeah, I am happy that we are part of all of those processes, like the Paris Declaration. I'm also happy to hear that we participated in COP26. COP26, and we have benchmarks that we have to meet. But I want you to make a little bit of a clarification in what you just said. What's the difference between being resilient, and being adaptive?
Well, basically they are almost the same. Being resilient just talks about your capacity. That's the difference. The capacity that you have in these communities, in the social setting, at the ecosystem level, to fight the hazards of climate change. And when you say climate change adaptation, is how we adjust ourselves, how we prepare ourselves to fight the impact. So they are basically similar. They are both the same. But then what we need to know is when you put adaptive structures in place, you move towards being resilient. So they are both interconnected.
Yes. So you cannot talk about
one without leaving the other. For example, yes.
Yeah.
So it's key if you are talking about the adaptation sectors, for example, whatever Ministry of Tourism does, Ministry of Water Resources does, Ministry of Agriculture does, to adapt to climate change, at the end of the day, that leads the country towards being resilient to climate change.
Okay. So, I just want us to be a little bit practical. I'm working with a group of women farmers who have been complaining about, the way the weather is, how erratic the weather has been to them and unfair, and some of the things that they also do, which I think for me, some of them are man-made, because like if you say you're doing slashing and burning, it means you're burning the top nutrients of the soil and all of that, coupled with, the erratic weather. How have we, as your agency, how have they put in place modalities to ensure that communities are able to adapt to this kind of situation that we are in at the moment? Or maybe what strategies have you put in place, so that those things that are causing this erratic weather, can be minimized?
First of all, we should know as a country, because of our over-dependence on the natural resources, on agriculture, coupled with the fact that we have unemployment level,
Mm-hmm.
we have poverty and environmental degradation, that has increased our risk to climate change.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned women, and that is key for us. You can see that 70% of the agricultural workforce, they are women.
Mm-hmm.
So you see women in these swamps, you see women in the farms, they are
Mhm.
mostly involved in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, and the unfortunate part of it is they are mostly left out when it has to do with decision making
Mm-hmm.
on climate change, not just in Sierra Leone but all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's key for us to target them as an institution that works towards being climate resilient as a country. We over the years have been targeting women agricultural groups.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did for them is to first of all talk to them, ask them, how are you doing your farming? Most of them said, oh, we are doing the slash and burn you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So we encourage them to move away from slash and burn farming to go into, for example, using the inland valley swamp, the one we call the IVS.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the ways to fight climate change. Though it's a form of doing climate smart agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
So that is key. So what we did, first of all, we trained them, these women groups. We have groups in Moyamba, in Bo, in Kailaun, in Port Loko, and Bombali.
Mm-hmm.
We train them on bookkeeping, basic bookkeeping. We train them on what environmental management is. We train them on what climate change is,
Mm-hmm.
and what will be the effect of the slash and burn that they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So after the training, they now even came to us and said, we've gotten these and these expertise, and now what we want to know is, how do we move forward?
Mm-hmm.
We want to move away from slash and burn farming. How will the EPA help us?
Mm-hmm.
So we told them, go back and tell us, what do you need? Some said, oh, we want to do cattle rearing, we want goat, sheep, and the agency provided that for them.
Mm-hmm.
Some said we want seedlings. There is a particular women group in Moyaban district, and we always applaud their paramount chief. In that area, if you cut trees for
Do you
charcoal
want to
burning,
name them so that they can
if you
have
cut,
a shout out?
I'll have to. I think it's Madam. I don't remember her name though.
Okay.
It's
Well,
unfortunate.
it's a woman.
It's a woman. That makes me proud. It's a
Yeah.
woman paramount chief. Every climate change event we go to, they always applaud her if she's there because of what the laws that she has put in place.
Okay.
You can do charcoal burn in her chiefdom. You don't do it. And because of that, we encourage the women groups in that area. They ask for seedlings, some ask for seeds, and they were provided with that. Some women groups were provided with cassava grater machines.
Mm-hmm.
They said, we want to do inland valley swamps, we want to cultivate cassava,
Mm-hmm.
but then what do we do with the cassava? We just want it to just, for example, we have limited transport facilities to take them to the big towns. What do we do? So we need cassava grater machine. So for example, we process gari. And when you process gari, it takes time for that to get spoiled, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So that was provided for a particular women group in Kailaun and other places. Some we gave cashew seedlings, some we gave other trees to plant. And so over time, we've been monitoring them. You see that we move them from the slash and burning to providing them alternative livelihoods. I will just give that as example for what we've done for women groups. And it hasn't just stopped there. All the projects that we're implementing in the country that has to do with climate change, the component of gender mainstreaming is key.
Mm-hmm.
It is key. We encourage even women when we request ministries, departments, and agencies to send in representatives to be members of the project steering committees of these projects. We encourage them to send in women instead of men if they have them. They have equipped women, because that's what we require. The decision making we are talking about, we need to start at those levels, even at community level. We want to go to meetings, for example, and see women there. We don't want to go to meetings and they say, oh, our husbands are only they are only required to go to these meetings. We are going to the farm. We always encourage them to bring out the women so that they also can be part of the decision making. So those are some of the ways we are making sure that we bring women on board, because climate change cannot just be we can't just make ourselves resilient, yes, by just fighting it or one sector fighting it. It has to be everybody, and it's key for women to be incorporated into it.
Okay, so now another reality, we are in the raining seasons, and we'll begin to hear about flooding, we'll begin to hear about disasters and all of that. So how disaster prepared are we to combat those situations?
Well, apparently, 2 years ago we established disaster preparedness department unit at the EPA. We don't respond to disaster because we have a whole department, we have a whole agency for that. What we do is to talk to people, encourage them, for example, to move away from environmentally sensitive areas because of the disaster that might erupt over time. So we have been talking to people, we've had sensitizations, we go to radio and TV and talk to them. And then unfortunately, when these disasters really struck, we work with the National Disaster Management Agency to see how we can help people. But we, as an agency, we think preparedness is key. We think avoiding the impact of these disasters is what we should make paramount. So what we do is to talk to these people, encourage them. If it gets to where we don't see a way of getting through them, we involve the NDMA or other partners or other institutions to do their own part. But we've been talking to them. Whenever it's around April, going towards May, most of our radio and TV discussions are geared towards what do we have to do. It's getting to the rainy season, what do we have to do? So that we encourage people to move away from these areas that are environmentally sensitive.
Okay, so Lovetta, we've had a lot from you, and I don't want us to stop talking, but then we'll have a part B of this conversation. But you have been an inspiration to so many young women. Do you want to send an inspirational message concerning the environment to our young women and young farmers and anybody interested in environmental protection?
Yes, let me start from the village level, community level. Please, we are all in this together. We don't leave it to the men. We are on this together. I'll give a typical example where I say that. I've talked about agriculture. Let's look at water resources. Women and girls are in charge of fetching water, cooking in the homes, right? So if our water resources are depleted, we don't have water bodies. Where do we get water from? So when it has to do with decisions that has to do with water management or anything that has to do with climate change, we should make sure we incorporate women and girls. And not just the men in this case. The men alone, they cannot fight this. They cannot. I will say that with every fiber of being in me, that the men alone cannot fight this. So we need to encourage each other to be part of the decision making as far as climate change is concerned. And for us to be resilient, even in the homes, they will tell you behind a strong man, there's always a strong woman. Even to make our home fruitful, we have to be strong in the homes. So when it has to do with climate resilience, I think for me, not just for me, but it's being done globally, it's key for the decision of women to be incorporated. Women should be on board. And so I encourage all the young girls that are saying, first of all, at the educational level, at the basic educational level, they always shy away from sciences. It's key for us to know that we don't leave sciences to only the men. Let's encourage our girls to make sure we also study sciences. And then when it has to do with decision making, when it has to do with livelihoods options, when it has to do with what do we do to fight the impact of climate change, let's make sure our girls are women, and women are part of the process and not just the men.
Thank you so much, Lovetta. Viewers, we've been chatting with Lovetta on climate resilience, and she is a climate change champion, and she has been in so many processes that has led to us improving our environment and how we stop environmental degradation. We want to say thank you very much for gracing our stage today, and we wish you well in this fight. And I know it's been very challenging, but we hope that we'll finally become as resilient as we want us to be. Thank you so much, and I wish you a pleasant day. And viewers, if this is the first time tuning in to Chat with Nene Alice, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to send in your comments. Thank you so much, and have a pleasant day.